David Lewis, a man from Texas, 39-year-old man who was working as a lawyer in Amarillo, he dies under mysterious circumstances in 1993. Basically the actions leading up to his death are so baffling. It's really impossible to make sense of what was he thinking or what was going through his head. And today we're going to be walking through this case. I'm here with Train. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm doing well. You've did a little bit of research on David's case. What is your first impression?
Odd. That's the only word that I could think of right now. And honestly, it started off simple. It was odd, but it was simple, quite understandable. But as you go further into details and into what happened, it becomes like a little more complicated and then even more complicated.
And nothing seems to make any sense. At the end of it,
not.
It's like so bizarre.
I just get lost.
Yeah, actually, same. David Lewis, he was born in the city of Borger in Texas in 1953. He was the second son of two children to Herschel and Esther Lewis. David graduated from high school in 1972, and from there he went to Texas Tech University, where he was an honors student and graduated with a degree in political science. David continued on to Texas Tech University Law School and gained a doctorate in jurisprudence in 1979. David practiced as an attorney in Amarillo, Texas, and was a member of the American Bar Association. He married his wife Karen back in 1981, and their only child, a daughter, was born a couple of years later. David was a member of the local church, a Sunday school teacher, a member of the director's board for the local city where he was living. It was called the Dumas. Dumas is very close to Amarillo. It's kind of maybe like the suburb of Amarillo, I don't know. So he was a community education advisory council member there and a district chairman involved in the Boy Scouts of America. David was said to be a dedicated family man and a charity volunteer who was close to his parents and brother. So it seemed like he was doing a lot in his life, like involved in many different activities.
Mm-hmm. And so far nothing is out of the ordinary. He seemed like a very successful man so far.
Yeah, like a successful lawyer guy from Texas. Now, let's move to 1993 when he went missing. So he went missing soon after the Super Bowl weekend of that year, which was on the January 31st. David's wife and daughter, actually, they wanted to go to from Amarillo to Dallas to basically do some shopping. And I'm not sure exactly how they went from Amarillo to Dallas. I'm not sure if they took a flight or if they drove there, but the distance is 400 miles away. So it's quite a big distance away. So I think they were also spending a few days there. Now, David didn't want to go with his wife and his daughter to Dallas because he wanted to stay back home in Amarillo and he wanted to basically watch the Super Bowl and apparently record it on the VHS recorder, which is, I think, a normal thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much so.
But when his wife Karen and their daughter, when they both returned back home from the shopping trip in Dallas on Sunday, January 31st, on the day of the Super Bowl match, David was not home, and this was strange because they were expecting him to be home. And there were also some strange things left in the house, such as the tape recorder, which was still recording as they came back home. So no one really stopped the recording. So it seems like whoever set up the recording left without stopping it.
Okay, I kind of feel stupid, but I would just like to ask, like, how did it work? Like, can you turn off the TV with it still recording?
So I never had this tape recorder also growing up, so I don't really know how they worked per se, but I think there's like a button. You put like a tape into the VHS thingy, and then you set record, and I think whatever is shown on the TV will be recorded onto the VHS tape, and you could watch it later.
So even with the TV shut off, it could still be running.
I think I don't know. Maybe the TV was still on.
Because I'm trying to create this visual in my head, like imagine the whole thing, like what the wife and the daughter came home to, what was the setup, and I'm trying to figure out if the TV was still on or not.
I don't know. I don't know if the TV was still on. I just assumed that it was maybe still on.
Or maybe not. Maybe it's just how it works.
Maybe. I'm sure someone in the comments will
For sure, yeah.
know, like,
Please
better.
educate us.
Exactly. 2 freshly made sandwiches were also found in the fridge. So it seems like someone made some sandwiches and left them in the fridge, but didn't eat them. And David's wedding ring and his watch had been placed on the kitchen counter, which is also strange because if David would leave these items, if David would leave the house, maybe he would want to take these items with him. So I think it was kind of strange that he left these things on the kitchen counter, per se. There were no signs of a struggle at the house or anything that seemed to be disturbed in the house. And there were no indication that any burglary or foul play had happened in the residence. It appeared as though David had simply just vanished for a little while. So David's wife at first did not suspect that this was of any concern because maybe she assumed that David just went to like a neighbor's or a friend's house to just watch the game.
Yeah, actually, I'm so sorry. Just
Of course, no.
with the VHS still recording, with the freshly made sandwiches in the fridge, you would expect someone, and with the wedding ring and the wallet on the table, it seems like he was just gone for such a short period of time that he will come back immediately.
Yeah, that was I guess that's what Karen thought.
Yeah.
But as the next day came about, the 1st of February, he was still not back home. And I think he also he missed some work appointments because he was a lawyer, so he had to be talking to clients. And that's when his wife reported him missing to the law enforcement. And strangely enough, David has not been... Well, no one knew what happened to David for the next 11 years until 2004. And in 2004... with the help of a very dedicated police officer from Washington State, so from a whole other part of the country, they were able to establish that actually David was the John Doe, an unidentified hit-and-run victim from Washington State who died literally on the same day when his wife reported him missing. So the biggest mystery here is that how did David ended up getting to Washington State on basically the next day after Super Bowl, because he had no ties to Washington State, and it's a very far distance away. It's like, I think, 1,600 miles away. So it's a complete mystery. Did he fly there? Did he take a car? Or like what's happening there? And why is he there in the first place? So we have a little bit of information about the circumstance of, I guess the John Doe that was later identified as David Lewis. So basically, apparently some motorists were driving. 1 second, I'm trying to see if I could find some information here. Yeah, here we go. Several people apparently had spotted an individual on Route 24 near the Washington State city of Moxie, several miles from the Yakima airport. And motorists turned around to stop other drivers to warn them that there was an individual who seemed disheveled and was walking in a strange manner along the highway. However, when these same motorists came back to kind of see how the man is doing, they already found him dead, and they also saw a Chevrolet Camaro speed away from the body. It seemed like the Chevrolet had hit David, and it was a hit and run potentially. So police actually arrived at the scene, and they saw that this was a middle-aged man. He had been dressed in military-style clothing and work boots. An examination found no traces of alcohol or drugs in his system, and as I've said, for the next 11 years he was basically unidentified, which is kind of bizarre because the family basically had no idea what happened to him for the next decade, right? Anything's jumping out to you so far?
Actually, I would save it for. I would just save it for the last part because it's mainly like for the theory part. But please go on.
Okay, of course. So, the day after the John Doe was found, which was the 2nd of February in 1993, the investigation into David's disappearance began because no one knew that he was actually already found dead in Washington state. So they were still looking for him in Amarillo. So at first they were able to locate his car. So they found his car, his red Ford Explorer, which had been parked outside of the Potter County Courts building downtown Amarillo. Under a mat on the floor, police found his house and car keys. His checkbook, credit cards, and driving license were inside the car in the usual places that David would keep them. So for some reason, he had left his car at the courthouse.
With the car keys, right?
Yeah, with the car keys.
Interesting.
No, but apparently him leaving those car keys in the car was a regular thing. So maybe that's not necessarily suspicious. I think the interesting part is that, he left his car, on like a Sunday, at a courthouse, which is bizarre. Why would he leave that car there? That would mean that if he actually went back home and made those sandwiches and started the VHS tape recorder, then he would actually have to take a cab back home. Because he leaves his car at the courthouse. He still needs to get back home to start that VHS recording.
Oh, yeah. Wait. So, is there a possibility that he... Actually, no.
What
Can't
are you
think of
thinking about?
anything. Maybe I mixed it all up because I was thinking maybe there's a possibility that he made the sandwiches first, rolled up the tape, and then drove to the courthouse. And then never came back.
I think that's also a possibility. I think there was a whole lot of speculation whether or not his VHS tape recorder could actually record on a predetermined time, or do you have to actually push the button as the Super Bowl started? Because if he could just set it to record at a certain time, then yeah, I think your logic could play out here.
Yeah.
Another strange thing that was uncovered during the initial investigation into his disappearance was that apparently David told his wife that he had been in danger. Now, he wouldn't tell his wife any information about the threats that he believed to be on his life, but he did say to his wife that he was in danger.
And we have no other information about it.
No, he didn't specify, but apparently this happened shortly before he went missing. Well, then we know now that he died.
That's interesting because that danger that he was claiming to have, do you think it was the culprit? Was he scared that he ran away from it, or was there people or someone actively chasing him?
So to kind of answer that question, you have to look at his personal life a little bit more. So apparently David's family believed that his disappearance may have been linked to his work as an attorney, because maybe a disgruntled client or an individual who held David accountable for something that had happened as the result of a case that he was handling. Maybe someone wanted to exact revenge on David. And also David was due in Dallas a week after his disappearance for a deposition hearing in a conflict of interest case between his former law firm and a wealthy client. David had told his father that he had no intentions of covering up any wrongdoings by his former firm and was going to tell the truth, whoever it hurts. So it seems like maybe David's father is indicating that there was potential danger from from like his ex law firm people who maybe wanted to silence David. But these possible leads, however, went nowhere, and it was until later that the investigators made their most significant discovery, which were 2 plane ticket purchases in David's name around the time of his disappearance. So the first ticket was purchased on the 31st of January, which was the Super Bowl weekend, which was the same day when his wife and daughter came back from the Dallas shopping trip. And now this ticket was purchased from Dallas to Amarillo, a flight from Dallas to Amarillo. Now, it's pretty interesting to me because there were no purchases made in David's name from Amarillo to fly anywhere, just back to Amarillo from Dallas. So that's kind of strange. It almost seems like maybe he somehow made his way to Dallas by car or by plane during the weekend, maybe on the 31st, earlier in the day, and then maybe later on the day, he actually bought a plane ticket in his name from Dallas back to Amarillo. Now, it's uncertain if this plane ticket was ever used. And also, there was a second ticket that was actually purchased the next day, the following day, on the 1st of February, actually when David was killed. So actually, on the day when he was killed, in his name, there was a ticket purchased from Los Angeles International Airport to Dallas. So this is also strange because he died in Washington State. So some people speculate that maybe he was buying that ticket because he was still, he still had some intentions to going back home to Amarillo. Maybe he would have to first fly from Washington to Los Angeles and then go from Los Angeles to Dallas and then from Dallas to Amarillo, because there are no direct flights between Amarillo and the location where he was found in Washington State.
I just have to say that's really complicated.
Was it even understandable?
No, it is understandable.
Okay.
It's just that the connecting flights were crazy. I mean, you just have to expect that there should have been like a direct flight, but it's freaking crazy.
I mean, I guess the location where he was found in Washington State is really like...
It wasn't a major city.
No, it was a very small town, like only 10,000 people or something like that.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it was a very small town.
Okay, I was picturing something way more
like a big
massive.
town.
Yeah.
No, it was that's why it's so strange in this case, because it's bizarre why David would even fly to that very specific niche location in Washington State. Like, why was he there?
Yeah.
The intentions behind the plane tickets are unknown, and it has not been revealed whether any of these were used, actually. So we don't know if David intended to use them. We don't know how he got, if he was ever in Dallas, per se, and what was that LA ticket about, we just don't know. And also, this is 1993, so I think, as we both learned, back in the day, you could basically buy a ticket without even giving out your ID. So you could buy tickets in fake names.
That's actually really crazy for me. When you told me about it, I was shocked.
That's apparently how it was back then,
It's pretty crazy.
before, 9/11. All right, so now we know that later on, 11 years later, David was identified, and we know that he was a victim of a potential hit and run. And now I want to kind of walk through the strange things throughout this case and maybe like try to get your perspective or like just, talk about this stuff. So let's start at the very beginning. So on January 28th, back in 1993, David's wife and his daughter leave their home in Amarillo, Texas to head to Dallas. So the first thing that I found strange is that somehow they didn't see each other. So I think the 28th of January was a Thursday. So his wife, Karen, I don't know if she actually was working or what was she doing at that point. But, she definitely wasn't working on that weekend starting Thursday. So she takes the daughter and they go to Dallas. We don't know exactly how they go there, whether they take the car or plane, who knows. Now, Uh, basically, David actually went to work on the 28th of January. So he told the people at work that he wasn't feeling that well, which was interesting. And he had to leave work early. So he left around midday or something like that. Now, later on the day, at around 10 p.m. on January 28th, he actually went on to teach a class because he was also like teaching courses on law for the government. So he was actually, teaching a class on that same day. We know that the Super Bowl was happening on the 31st of January, which was the Sunday. But that's besides the point, because let's go back a few days before the Super Bowl. So now this is the strange part for me. This is something I didn't mention earlier, but now I'm going to walk you through the crazy details here. So, because there's so much weird things happening in this case. So let's move to Friday, to the 29th of January. So at this point, sorry.
Oh, no, nothing. I just wanted to confirm at this point, the wife and the daughter were already out in Dallas.
Yeah.
And he was completely alone.
Yes, correct. So on that Friday, I don't know exactly if he went to work because it was never really mentioned. But the first strange thing that happened was that around the middle of the day, one of the members from his church that he was attending with his family saw him hurrying in the airport, in the International Amarillo Airport, or like just the regular Amarillo Airport, I don't know how it's called, without any luggage. What does that mean?
Trying to catch a flight? But
No, but he had no luggage and he's hurrying around there on the 29th. So is he already on that Friday trying to catch a flight somewhere?
could be with the intention of going back soon if he doesn't have the luggage.
Right.
Immediately I was thinking maybe he was trying to catch a flight.
To Dallas or something.
Could be, yeah, but it's a short-term trip. Could be for the weekend, just for the weekend.
Okay. I think there's also a possibility that maybe he was waiting for someone in the airport. Because that's how I understood the no luggage part. Maybe he was like waiting for someone.
For whom though? And that person, whoever he was waiting for, never really said anything, never really like stepped up.
No, but we don't know. This could be some secretive stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
On the same day, on that Friday, in the evening, at around 10:30 p.m., a police officer saw his car parked outside of the Potter County courthouse. So we don't know if he... I think he didn't go to work because maybe it would be mentioned in the information online that some of his colleagues had spotted him. So I think maybe he never went back to work on the 29th. Maybe he was just called in sick or something like that. But he parked his car at some point and he left there at 10:30 p.m. in the evening. And I don't know exactly how far away he lived from the courthouse, but I don't think it was walking distance. So if he ever returned back home that day and he wasn't at the court, or maybe he was at the court, I don't know. What do you think? Anything jumps out to you, or just
No.
bizarre details that have no explanation?
I couldn't find any other reason, like any other explanation.
It's bizarre. So the next day, on Saturday, the 30th of January, the car was no longer at the courthouse anymore. However, on that same day, a neighbor saw his car parked in his driveway, so in the neighbor's driveway. So...
Is that a common thing?
I don't know. And I don't understand why David would, leave the car parked in the neighbor's driveway. Police also made a few comments about the last sighting that was where I think officially David was last seen. And apparently it occurred on that Saturday. Like the last official sighting of David happened. Well, obviously we know that he was also sighted walking in Washington State, but I guess before he got to Washington State, the last time he was sighted was that Saturday on January 30th. But law enforcement never released any details. So I assume they were probably just keeping some information for themselves for like the ongoing investigation or something like that. Now, the next day, on the 31st of Super Bowl day, so we don't know exactly where David is at that point, but because, the last official sighting of him was on Saturday. But I think we have some credible sightings that happened afterwards as well. But I guess they just never were officially verified. So police reported that, so let's jump to the 31st, the Super Bowl day. David's car was once again parked at the courthouse. So for the second time, now the car ends up in the courthouse. And now a police officer reported seeing a man matching David's description, so it was probably David, taking pictures of the car parked next to the courthouse. Why would David be taking pictures of his own car? Almost like he's documenting that he's there on the 34th. I have no idea what's happening there.
Or planning to sell the car.
Sell the car. I don't think it... In 93, I don't think it was popular to go online and put pictures of your car.
No, maybe just he's gonna meet up with someone and he's gonna show the picture of the car using his, I don't know, camera or cell phone.
No cell phones in 93.
Camera.
No digital cameras, so you'd have to actually show like a physical copy.
Crap.
Right, so...
Okay, it makes things even weirder.
Yeah, it's not, and why would you, if you're going to sell the car, just show up with the car? Right.
Yeah, things are starting not to make sense.
Yeah, it's bizarre at this point. Like, why would he be... I'm actually thinking, why would he be taking pictures of the car? And I really can't think of anything right now.
Beats me.
Yeah, it's just... No one really seems to have an explanation for this one, for this particular detail. So later on in the same day, his wife and daughter returned back from Dallas, and they find that the house is empty. And we already know of the strange clues. The VCR apparently is still taping something. The refrigerator has a couple of freshly made sandwiches, and David's ring and watches on the kitchen counter. And it seems like earlier in the day he was taking pictures of his own car that was left at the courthouse, and the car was actually also found at the courthouse later on. So it seems like David potentially took pictures of his car and then just left it be there and then did something else. So we don't really know if David actually returned back home after taking pictures of his car on the 31st, or if he straight up just headed somewhere. So I think one of the most bizarre pieces of information actually came out from February 1st, which was Monday, the day when he was actually reported missing by his wife. So at some point during the day on Monday, a Dallas taxi driver, not Amarillo, Dallas taxi driver, recalled taking a man who fit David Lewis' description from a hotel to the Dallas Fort Worth International Airport. He also said that this man, who looked like he was David Lewis, seemed nervous, and he paid in cash from a wad of $100 bills. So that's interesting because David now somehow potentially appears in Dallas. So he must have left Amarillo on the 31st. And for some reason, he went to a hotel in Dallas. We don't know what was he doing, but he was in a taxi and he was nervous. And he paid from a wad of cash, maybe in order to hide his transactions.
And tracks.
And he had no wedding ring or watch, And I think maybe most of his identification was also left at home or at his car, which was parked at the courthouse. So he just ends up in Dallas with no identification and a lot of cash. Why?
Paranoia.
Paranoia? You think it's like signs of paranoia? Or do you think he's actually trying to like, or do you think it's do you think it's rational, or do you think it's like complete craziness at this point?
With this case, all I could think of, and yes, I'm getting ahead of myself, and
Go for it, man.
it's either someone was after him actively, or he was thinking that someone was after him. Does it make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. I also have that same idea, but I find it really hard to believe that, like a lawyer who like knows the legal system would kind of like not go to police if he was really under,
Maybe it was something that involves the police.
or maybe like he's hiding. I don't know.
It's like a government secret.
No, I mean, I wouldn't think that. I wouldn't dig that deep that it's like that. But I just find it difficult.
Or maybe
to
it was
believe.
something massive. Maybe it was like, I don't know, the government was involved or the police were involved, or like something way too big that he couldn't just leave. Like, leave it, basically.
Well, we don't know exactly where he went after he got out of that taxi cab, but I assume that he took a flight. But we don't know exactly where he flew. But we know that on that same day, in the evening at 10:30 p.m., he was hit by a potentially Chevrolet Camaro in a very small, very not special little town highway in Washington State, and he had no connections to Washington State whatsoever, and it made no sense for him to be there, no rational sense for him to be in Washington State. And by the end of that same day, they found his car parked in the courthouse, and his wife actually later came out and reported that the only item of clothing that she could not account for was a pair of green sweatpants. So it seems like he potentially brought those green sweatpants with him. And when he was found as a John Doe in Washington State, he was wearing clothes that his family was not familiar with. So it seems like sometime after he left home, he changed into an outfit that he either purchased recently or, something that he wouldn't wear usually. Almost, again, to me, it seems like he's trying to hide his identity on purpose, right? Okay, so police consider the possibility that his work as a judge and a lawyer may have made him some enemies who were determined to get rid of him and kill him. His wife Karen recalled that he had received some death threats while on the bench. Since then, he had represented apparently a man in a lawsuit, and this lawsuit was brought against a son-in-law of this man. And the son-in-law had been convicted of murder. So it's very strange. Apparently, he was defending a man who was brought to court by a son-in-law of his, and the son-in-law had been convicted of murder. So it's kind of a little bit speculated here and there that maybe that son-in-law, it's such a strange little thing that comes out of nowhere here, could have been responsible for David's murder. But apparently the client that David was representing, he said that his son-in-law probably would not be able to organize a hit on David from jail because he did not have the resources. So I guess this one particular instance just indicates that David actually had, he was involved in legal cases where there were dangerous people involved, and that he could have made some enemies. you know. And then also at the time of his disappearance, David had been a defendant in a lawsuit brought against him and several other lawyers and a former client. His wife observed several months later that he was the only defendant in the case who had yet to be deposed, and wondered if that might have anything to do with his disappearance. However, David's own personal lawyer, who was representing him, so even though he was a lawyer, he also had another lawyer, representing him in that particular case, said that that probably had nothing to do with it, because by him disappearing, no party in that particular lawsuit would gain any advantage. So I guess what he's saying is that even if David didn't show up to the proceedings, no one would really win. So it wouldn't really make sense from that standpoint. And then to finish off, David's family believed that he met with foul play. Karen noted that David was looking forward to his daughter's upcoming birthday, and the friends of his said that he was also talking about his upcoming career possibilities, and he had a lot to kind of look forward to in his life. So any kind of ideas of potential self-harm had been disregarded by the family, as it usually is the case. Usually the family members are not really fond of that idea. But I'm not sure. Maybe to me, I don't know, I would be leaning towards that. But that's it. That's all the notes I have. I know this was like a 1,000 piece puzzle, this case.
Definitely, yeah.
And I know
some things make sense, some things don't, and together they just...
I know. I feel like maybe we could like shift the podcast into like a more relaxed flow a little bit here, because man, like my brain is a little fried. I'm just happy that I was able to kind of like
push out the information so we could talk about it.
Yeah, push out the information, and it's been like literally 30 minutes of this just crazy information coming out of this case. I'm just glad we're done with it, and like we could like relax a little bit and just kind of think about what's happening here. So I have a set of a few questions here, and this is now just us kind of free-flowing and just shooting out some ideas, right? So I want you to kind of maybe like give your thoughts, maybe something will jump into your mind. So my first idea is, my first question is, do you think that Washington State, where he was found, that had any actual logical connection for him, or do you think he just took a flight from potentially Dallas, as we now know, anywhere? He just saw, oh, Washington State, whatever, get me a ticket, or like, I'm going,
Yeah, the former.
Oh, wait, so you think it was specifically, he was going there for a specific reason to that specific Washington State location?
Honestly, not necessarily, but I don't think it's entirely, like, random. Maybe he thought about it on his way, but I'm just, in my head, I couldn't be convinced that it's something else other than, self-inflicted. Random. I think it was random. I think he was specifically choosing a place that didn't have any connection with him to better hide his tracks.
Yeah, that's also what I was thinking, that he was just, to me it seems like he was trying to go as far as possible away from Amarillo. Okay, so that's, I guess we're agreeing on that particular part. Do you think that he wanted to leave his family behind and start a new life, because he left all of his, identification?
I think so, honestly.
Start a new life, or end his life?
Start a new life, or hide for a little bit. That's what I'm thinking. It's just pure speculation. It's just that if he actually, yeah, thinking about it. But then again, nah, I think he was just hiding.
You think he was hiding, right?
I don't know. It kind of feels a little too complex to just inflict self-harm at the very end. Does that make sense? What do you think?
So I think, honestly, for me, the biggest question that's jumping out to me right now is, and it would explain your question as well, was he really a victim of a hit and run, or did he maybe somehow jumped in front of it and maybe tried to end his life? Because it was somehow stated that it's believed that he was a victim of a hit and run. But I think it's not completely unheard of people with, self-harm ideas to kind of jump onto traffic.
Was he hit in the highway?
Yeah, and he
On the
was
highway, yeah?
on the highway, and he was not drunk or on
Or
any
high.
or high. Yeah, there were no substances found in his blood.
Actually, it could be either. Because if I remember correctly, it was the middle of the night, no?
It was the middle of the night. Yes.
It was completely dark. So
Yes.
there was a possibility that the driver just didn't see him, or there was a possibility that he intended to jump. But then again, I kind of am leaning more towards the accident of it being hit and run. Mainly because if he wanted to inflict self-harm, why go all the way to Washington State in the middle of nowhere just to do it? Why buy a military uniform, hide your tracks? Why not just do it in Texas?
Yeah, the distance to me seems like he's specifically trying to not be identified in Washington State. And why would he go to Washington State in the first place to not be identified? I think he knew that maybe there's a huge chance that he's not coming back from Washington State, if you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
it feels to me like he, on purpose, wanted to commit self-harm. That's how I'm leaning towards in this case. Like, I'm just thinking that it's probably like self-harm. Because he was involved in a lot of lawsuits and things were happening. It's not like everything was going super well for him, you know. There were some bad things happening, and there was probably a lot of stress, and he was involved in so many things. So either he had like a crazy snap,
Oh, could be actually.
because it kind of started that way, to be honest. If you would go back to the very first piece of information that we know about him, he started feeling bad at work on Thursday, and he had to call in an early day. And I think it's also interesting because so his wife and his daughter, they left for Dallas early on Thursday, right? Early in the day. So he went to work, and he sort of made it seem to his wife and his daughter that everything is just regular. It's a regular day. He goes to work and they go to Dallas. Now, once they leave, he immediately calls in sick at work. And then who knows what he starts doing for the next 2 days, 3 days. He does a bunch of crazy stuff. And then he ends up being dead. So it almost seems like he waited until his wife left, and that's when the craziness started. So I think maybe it's like a premeditated thing where he was kind of like undecided what he's gonna do, and I'm just, unfortunately leaning towards the self-harm explanation. Obviously, there could be a different explanation here, but that's just how, after thinking about this case, I'm just thinking that it's probably self-harm.
But it's just so random. On
Why?
a highway in the middle of nowhere
No,
at
it's not.
a random time.
I don't think it's necessarily random, because he just wanted to get away as far as possible, and he didn't want to be identified. And if that was his motivation, then he was very successful because he was unidentified for 11 years.
No, but why not like maybe a more specific location, not just a random highway?
Maybe the highway wasn't the last location. Maybe it just happened in the moment.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Washington State has a lot of parks, mountains. So I think maybe there could be a different destination. It just may have happened there.
Yeah. Yeah, this one I'm not quite sure because I'm still leaning towards the hit and run. Like there must be like
No, the hit and run, yeah, but then why was he there?
there must be like a bigger plan because we both agree it's premeditated, but it seems way too complex to just end in a highway for me. I think there was an end goal. He never reached that goal, and we'll never know of what that goal might
I
be.
also agree. It seems like there could be more happening here. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just happened that an accident on the highway happened. Maybe he was actually planning to start a new life. That explains all of the tickets, like going to LA, as you mentioned, trying to get someone off his track, wearing those military uniform, hiding his glasses, leaving all of his stuff behind, including the cars, identification cards, and so on. I feel like maybe he was actually wanting to start a better life. He just never had a chance to. Or a different life, I meant.
Yeah. Well, at this point, I guess no point in speculating any further, right? I feel like we both agree that we don't know what happened here.
No, honestly, sorry. What I was thinking is that he was definitely trying to hide his tracks.
Oh, yeah. Well, we agree on this one.
Yeah, no, because I just wanted to point out that sandwiches in the fridge and then the tape recorder, VHS recorder or something. And then it seems like he's trying to make it seem like he's just around the corner in the neighborhood, whereas in reality he was in another state.
Maybe he just couldn't take it anymore and he just left.
True.
Right.
The pressure of work.
The pressure of everything.
And like leaving his car in the courthouse, maybe he was trying to make it seem like he just left a little bit, but he was in the courthouse.
Yeah, maybe he tried to make it seem that he's like somewhere in Amarillo. Look for me in Amarillo. Something, I'm just here in Amarillo. Don't look at me in Washington State.
But what about the plane tickets to random places though? Like LA, as you mentioned, no?
From LA to Dallas, almost indicating that he wanted to come back home from LA, but he was never in LA. He was in Washington State.
Maybe it's another trick to confuse people, to get someone off his back.
All right. So you also said you want to have some ideas about his outfit, right?
Well, he mentioned he was in a military getup and he was hiding his glasses.
So I'm not really sure about whether or not he was actually hiding his glasses.
It was in the pocket.
Maybe. I don't know. I honestly can't really tell you if he was trying to actively hide the glasses. And about the military getup, I think it was mentioned that he had military style pants and work boots.
Oh.
I don't really know if he had like a full
outfit.
Full outfit. It just was like more like maybe casual, outdoorsy type outfit more than anything.
I wonder in which direction he was heading towards, like away from the airport or going to the airport.
I think it was going away from the airport.
And why didn't he take a taxi instead? Why did he have to walk in the middle of the night?
To me, that seems like because he had the money. I think he clearly had the money. So, in my opinion, that's why I'm kind of leaning towards it. He just wanted to kind of like end everything there on that highway.
Because he chose to walk in the middle of the night. That's pretty
Yeah.
weird, yeah.
And just jump in the car and make it seem like an accident. And maybe he also wanted to be a John Doe forever. You know?
Yeah. And this one's pretty crazy. It's hard to explain everything.
Yeah.
Or try to figure out what actually happened because it's just, this case is way too
It's
complex,
complicated. Yeah,
yeah.
it's very complicated, man. There's so many things happening here, but I think the most simple explanation here is that he was going through some sort of mental
Yeah, I think so too.
challenging time, and then he somehow like decides randomly to go to Washington State and commits self-harm. That's like the most simple explanation, in my opinion. There could be something else happening here, though.
Yeah, once again, there could be someone who was after him, or he was thinking that someone was
Yeah.
after him, and that led to a mental episode or a mental breakdown.
Yeah, that's also a possibility. But yeah, I think from my end, I'm like satisfied that I said everything that I had on this case. Anything
This
else?
case was a tough case to keep up with.
Tough case to kind of try to explain the details. So I hope people who are listening were able to kind of like understand what we're even talking about here.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, and we'll talk to you very soon, guys. Bye.
See you.